Kia ora and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Huge weekend again. I say it every week. It's like a massive weekend of rugby, but this is actually a massive weekend.
This year
of rugby.
it has been.
It's always a massive weekend of rugby. We have the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup featuring the four teams that everyone knew was going to make it. And it's going to be an absolute cracker because all four were in red-hot form on the weekend. We also have the All Blacks coming off a really disappointing performance. It was taking us back to the Island series, really, wasn't it? Before they take on Wales this coming weekend, who also have their problems as far as injuries are concerned. What on earth did Scotland do against Australia to not win that? And a good look ahead to all of the games this weekend. James Parsons joining me in the Auckland studio. Thanks for joining us again, Jipper.
Pleasure, mate.
Yeah, you must have watched a lot of footy on the weekend.
Oh, plenty. It's even more this weekend, though.
Oh, goodness me. Did your wife ever see it?
She does. It's the beauty of my sky.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of my sky.
You watched them through the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And Bryn Hall, who went to the game on the weekend in Tokyo.
I wish the camera caught you souping some beverages there, Brenna. Well behaved.
I was just going to say, if they panned down a little bit more, there was a few Asahis in the seat below me. So, but no, it was really good, awesome, different atmosphere. To be honest, it's the first time that I've really experienced a Japanese game, and very, very quiet, very observant, and just kind of cheer when things happen. So, but look, we'll touch on it. But what a great game! Look, the Brave Blossoms, man, they were brave in spades. So, look forward to going a little bit more detail around the All Blacks in Japan.
Yeah, we'll get onto that very soon. But let's start with the Women's Rugby World Cup semi-finals coming up. New Zealand against France, England against Canada. The Black Ferns performance was strong, and particularly in one area that maybe we hadn't seen from them before, Chipper.
No, and probably haven't seen for about 12 months is up front. Like that was the balance of the squad was so perfect. Like it was throughout the whole 80. Didn't matter, like Pip Love doing the job up front, then Murray comes on and they dominate that scrum. Nawu coming on late in the piece, there was question marks why she wasn't starting, but I think Bremner was outstanding alongside Ruse. So I think I wouldn't change too much in that pack going into this week. It was the most complete performance, from them up front. There's some opportunities they may feel they left out there, out wide, but in terms of providing a platform, the only blemish you can really have a crack at is there are a couple of side entries called on their attacking breakdowns, but even their defensive breakdowns were massive. Getting line-out steals, winning their own ball. It was just really, really sharp throughout the full 80, and that just has to give them confidence, because if you watch that French quarterfinal, they were pretty formidable up front as well. So they will have to lift another a gear going into this week, but that must give them some confidence leading into the semi-final.
Bryn, do you think that what we saw from that forward pack is enough to deal with the likes of France and England, whose forward might is renowned?
Oh, we're going to find out. But I think the great thing in probably the last 12 months, we were here last time, this time last year, talking about the defence issues and also even the set piece issues. But look, against that Welsh team here, they probably struggled a little bit scrum time last time they played them. We're very, very dominant. And, the kind of top quality ball that we're getting from our lineups, which we just weren't getting 12 months ago, is really giving the likes of Flula, Woodman, Tui, Letienga opportunities to be able to use that attacking break. Because look, that's the way they're going to go. They're going to use that the ball in air quite a lot. And I think the forward pack, you talk around the breakdown work, that is just such an improvement that they have had. The tip lines, the animation, the mic coming out the back and her offloads, they all are in sync. But, I think the best thing about it is that they're prepared and they've got the cohesion a little bit through the duration of this competition. And the step up is going to be a lot more. But to be honest, I think they're ready with all the growth and the signs that they've shown over this World Cup, and even in that the Rugby Championship, the girls version, playing the Wallaroos quite a lot. It's a great time for them, and I think they're ready, definitely ready to play the French.
You talked about the animation. They reminded me a little bit of the Irish men's team. There were bodies in motion in all sorts of directions. There was so much going on there.
It's the trust and the communication, though, that makes it. If you watch Woodman's try just after half-time, they're just throwing, they're not even looking, they're just popping it up, and there's bodies coming from depth and punching onto it, and then they're just committing a defender and going and going. And they make it look simple, but it's not. Like to have that timing, that trust, and the ability to pass at the right time, that commits two defenders, that creates space for the other player to go in. And then I have to single someone out. Fitzpatrick is just on fire at the moment. She is the real glue that is allowing those opportunities to be taken. Some of her wide balls, but also her short passing. But then the stuff that will go unnoticed is her decision making. When she makes a break, she could just throw a 50-50, but she keeps it. She recycles another breakdown, and then they score 2 or 3 phases later. She has just made that 12 jersey her own.
The likes of having Flula, Fitzpatrick, and with having Woodman and Tui, and even Letienga, the defence on the edge that they're bringing at the moment is really, really good. Under stress, they're making very good decisions. And, you look at Flula, how many times she was able to go ball and all, spot tackle, get up, flood the ruck, and then being able to build defensive pressure off that. Because, look, I think defensively they've been really, really good. They just probably haven't been tested. But the French this week, I know they're going to, probably go a bit more to their set piece, but the decision-making with Flula, Fitzpatrick, and those wingers on the edge, defensively, look, we've been sound. We've been had a great defensive system and done some really great tackling on the wide edges due to those players.
Well, I think if you look at the sevens influence there, you've got Fitzpatrick, Flula, you've got Woodman, you've got Tui, but you've also got Hirini, who's making some great decisions in terms of that turnover space as well. They are so used to being in open fields where they're having to cover and make decisions in high pressure situations where they're more vulnerable. They've got more people around them in support, so it's almost giving them confidence that they can go. They're like, oh my God, I'm in for a kill here because I know I've got the support of more people around me. And they're making the right decisions. And even when they're short, Flula is the best connector to those outsides because she almost gets up, shows herself, a little bit like Fekitoa used to do. He'd show face, and then they pull out and use the sideline as their friend, and it makes the attacking team have to make those decisions, which is then creating the turnover opportunities. And because in sevens, Fitzpatrick, Flula, Woodman, and Tui are supposed to be able to get over the ball and get turnovers, they're doing that on the edge as well, which is so crucial. And those wide breakdowns, they're attacking and they're getting the rewards for it.
They used their 2 big kicking options, Tubic and Holmes, off the bench. How did you feel that worked, Brent?
Well, I think we did talk about it, the kicking game, and, with the likes of how they are going to play. The back 3, are not well-known kickers, but they're very good when it comes to the attacking side. But, what I did like was Kendra Coxedge and Demont, obviously using those kicks. Kendra, off both feet, was able to get in behind with box kicks and attacking top kicks and showed a range of our kicking game. And Demont, actually, when she did kick, they were kicking nice and long. But I think it does fall back into that, having more kicking options on the bench. And I like having Tubic and Holmes in there because they can do that, because you look at the English game and it was raining the whole time. Will we be able to have the same skill set and execute under pressure with the weather conditions like that? And look, let's hope it's a sunny day, but we haven't been tested until that first test match we played against the Wallaroos when it was wet and raining, and it's a little bit harder to attack. So I do like having Tubic and Holmes in there for that exact reason. They can kick, but if it does rain as well, then they've got the opportunities to be able to go to the kicking game. You'd like to think they're prepared for that if it does happen.
Yeah, I think after the weekend, I'm a lot more comfortable with them on the bench than probably previously. It's the first time I'd seen Demant really kick long and find space. I think it was the 11th minute. She, I think it was a quick throw in, or they were under a little bit of pressure and she just put it downfield, and it was a decent sized kick. So they've definitely got it in their artillery. And I agree with you, Bryn. Kendra's decision making on the back of the forward platform that she's getting gives her the ability to know when to pass, know when to run, and know when to kick and put that ball in behind. So with those two starting the game, and if it doesn't go to plan, you have to feel for a Brunt a little bit because she's performed really well, but the balance doesn't work because Fitzpatrick and Flula are going so well. They probably don't need to be subbed. They're 80-minute players. So then it's like, okay, we've got Holmes and Tubic that can cover 10 if anything happens there, but it also gives us that ability to bring one of the live wire explosive players in the back 3 off. So it's just a better balance of side for them. And I think the bench, as I said, more suited after the weekend's performance to see that they've actually got the ability to kick long.
So I guess for the French, who you look at the Six Nations, how many times the English were able to kick back to them and they were able to counter-attack and using their electrifying wingers, it's a little bit different when we don't give them opportunities to be able to do that. Sorry, ladies, that was just my the bath in the background.
That was the toilet. Was that the toilet talking to you?
And having a bath in the background, so apologies for that. But no, look, that's probably the reason. I don't think they're going to get a lot of opportunities, to be honest, with our kicking game. But if they do, you look at the likes on the weekend with their wingers and their fullback, they've got the ability to be able to attack. Whether they're going to be able to do that, because I actually think defensively our pressure and the way that we defend be very, very questionable to see if they're going to be able to get around us.
Yeah, we've just got to make sure we've got that backfield cover. Though, you've got to just run that dual fullback role, because they do. France have the ability to kick long, and 50-22s or pinning us in our corner, and then if we chance our arm and force an error, it can become a weapon for them as well. So they're not, yes, they've got the ability to counter-attack, but they're probably their biggest strength is getting their kicking game right.
Now, both of you, I think you had your power rankings on the money through the tournament. England, New Zealand, France and Canada. Going into this semi-final, do you think that it's New Zealand or France as number 2?
For me, it's New Zealand at the moment. After the weekend, honestly, before the weekend, I would have said the French have got probably the higher order in terms of their forward dominance. That forward dominance hasn't gone anywhere. I'm not saying they've underperformed. After the weekend, I just see us having the ability to win this at home. I don't know. It is on the back of what I've seen in the forwards, but it was just that complete nature and the ability of that kicking game. I just feel we can get ourselves out of trouble. We don't have to run everything at all costs, and that change of mindset was shown on the weekend.
Is this semi-final or is this the trophy?
No, there's a big hurdle in England. You'd have to say
It's
England are still
favourites.
favourites.
Yeah.
You have to. They haven't done anything to lose that.
You wouldn't want to play them in the rain, Bryn. That was incredible.
Well, that's it, But in saying that, you've got to be able to prepare for that opportunity. But I agree with Jip. I actually think we've moved into second with the growth that we've had throughout the progression of this tournament. And that Italian side, 10-3 at half time, and a few things here and there. It was a very, very difficult work for the French, who ended up going over the top of them in that second half. But look, I think you asked me 12 months ago if we were going to be in a position right now to actually be competitive against France. I think we're more than competitive, and I'm backing us to be able to get their win in a tight game, because the growth that we've shown throughout this coaching regime that's been brought in, there's been so much growth and improvements in that team. And so, I'm thinking definitely us second, France third, and then the Canadians to top out the top 4.
They should be incredibly proud of themselves. Come what may, whatever happens this weekend, the turnaround has been full of heart and courage and intellect and ability. It's been something to be proud of.
Oh, absolutely. But I don't think it stops there. I almost get that the sense of that moment in the Highlanders documentary when Jamie Joseph is like, no one backs you. Like when you start making, whatever happens. But I think they'll be disappointed if they fall at this hurdle. I genuinely do, because I think they've earned the right to challenge for the Cup. I do. I'm a lot more positive and buoyed after the weekend, and I just think they've now got themselves in a position to win this thing at home, and I just think that's one hell of a motivator.
Chip, you say it all the time in big games. The front, the 8 are going to have to do a big job on the weekend, because if they can win that at set piece, win their own set piece ball, and definitely the scrum time. And the good thing that I've liked about it, Chip, on attacking sides, when they have had the ball, they've been able to have solutions and get that quick hook with McCulley to get in that ball out quick to be able to then attack off that. So they'll be in for a big week, and I can imagine Wayne Smith will have a few probably visitors coming in to be able to rev the girls up and give them a great mindset against the French.
I think a lot of plaudits, I know the back 5 are playing a big part at scrum time, and they're generating a lot of power, and they've got better through the tournament. But some of the bind work, and it's going to be too hard to explain here, of Love and Rule, to get dominance. If we use Love as an example, great long bind, even a little bit on the shorts, which isn't allowed, but she's got full control of her opponent before it's even the ball's in. You can just see it. If you've got the scrum done and dusted, and it was the same when Murray came on and Rule emptied the tank as long as she could. They have developed so much in their scrummaging, and I think they've got themselves in such a confident position that they know when they're in control and when they're not, and that's a big difference between going in there and guessing. And I think they are the cornerstone of the turnaround, because the same power, yes, there's some improvements in body shape and that transfer of that power from 8 through to the locks and the Lucy staying on for long periods, but those two props have been massive in the turnaround, and they were huge on the weekend.
Another huge job from Mike Cron.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is just so gifted when it comes to teaching the art of scrummaging, but it's the way he articulates it. It's the way he makes you come up with the solution yourself. He doesn't give you the answer, he almost draws it out of you, and that's when you get that ownership and you get that better understanding.
Yeah, and they're all like his children.
Well, all the scrums?
Every scrum, every front
every
rower.
scrum's
Loves every
child.
front row around the world like a child.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, it's going to be bloody exciting to see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Yeah. Now, are you as pumped after watching that All Blacks Japan? I'm going to use the word fiasco. It was a step backwards. It was a step back to the Irish series. It was a step back to a place where they appeared to have little direction and little clarity and were ineffective.
I suppose where it was a step to for me was that first test against the Springboks, where we tried to, sort of go to width too early. We didn't go through first, and we almost just thought it was going to happen. And you saw that we got caught behind the advantage line. We got caught kicking not on our terms and playing into their hands a little bit. But if you looked at Hoskins Sotutu's try, it was almost like it got to 28-24 and they're like, no, actually, we just need to roll our sleeves up. And that's their blueprint. That's what they've done, is they've just gone direct through the middle with that 8, and then they just they sucked in the defenders. There were still threats out wide, so it created the space for someone like Hoskins to do his thing, hit and spin and score. But it was off the back of just doing simple carries, hard cleans, and that is their game. And I know Jace Ryan will be, articulating that throughout the week as well.
How does that message not get to them through the first 60-odd minutes of the test, though, Bryn?
Well, I just think it shows, they probably would have done the preview around, opportunities and probably playing with a bit of ball in the air. And, if they were able to do that, because probably I thought the execution was a little bit off around little offloads and little knock-ons at bad times. But, defensively, the Japanese were tackling around that 91%, making really good dominant shoulders. And it was actually quite hard for us to be able to I even look in that first 10 minutes, very good defensive line. Then we went to our kicking game, which was going off 10, but probably just a little bit too far. The ones that were contestable, Caleb Clark was really able to get back, and then we were able to attack off that. But I just thought there's got to be some clapping for the Japanese, because they were outstanding. I don't know how many times defensively, to be honest, if they were able to just hold on to the ball a little bit more through the offloads, they could have scored maybe 2 more tries, and this could have actually been a win for the Japanese. And so their execution was just a little bit off. But coming back to Jip's point, and what it seems to be like with the All Blacks at the moment is the breakdown. If we just aren't going through them and getting that quick ball and being efficient at the breakdown and going through the mindset, we don't seem to be able to get them that positions where we're having the front foot ball, kicking on our terms, and being able to, exert pressure through that way.
You've got to give credit to... It's a hell of a coaching lineup when you see the camera pan to that Japanese coaching box. There's some years of experience and IP in there, but Mitchell is really experienced, and I think he knew. I thought Roger had a great game. I thought he was exceptional in what he was doing in his role as an individual, but I think it showed the All Blacks attack without Havili there as a kick bailout or an attacking kicking option doesn't allow you to slow their defence, and that's a big factor in what's turned the All Blacks game around, is that kick option off Havili, whether it be attacking or his 50-22s. That all fell on Richie, and they knew that. So they just kept coming. They were just like that swarming defence that we saw in that first test against the Springboks. And that's just smart coaching. They saw the team that was selected. They probably knew Davey wasn't going to be picked. And that's not on Rog. It's just that's the nature of the skill sets that each have, and they'll be looking to improve off each other from it. But that was a big catalyst in allowing that Japanese defence to just keep coming. Obviously, we weren't getting the platform we'd like up front, but I always say, if you run the same move, you get in the same spot, the throws that are good, you've got to accept that you're going to lose a couple, and if you do, you just got to acknowledge that. And Derns and Cornelsen are big men. It is, we laughed about Pari and Holland last week for the Highlanders and how hard that's going to be. Like Bryn said, you've got to credit their pack a little bit. They stood up and they performed. I'd say I've commentated a number of Japanese top league games. That is the best I've seen Derns play. He stepped up in the big moment. So there were some reasons as to why we didn't quite get our attack going, and the simplicity of being direct, but also the change of personnel did change the balance of our attack.
And I look at the preparation side for the Japanese boys as well. Being lucky to be over here, and the kind of preparation that they had before that test match has been really, really good. They were in camp for about 6 to 7 weeks, just being able to fine-tune things, knowing that the India tour was coming and the All Blacks were coming. Had some great development games against the Australian A and being able to use their squad and playing and getting that cohesion, being able to play every single week. And look at the All Blacks side, and this is probably we don't use this as an excuse, but 4 weeks away from not playing and training and getting to be able to be on the training paddock, and then bringing in new players in different positions. Like you said, I thought Roger was great around his ability of where he's come in his rugby. His distribution was good at times, had some really good dominant runs and some good carries. But I think you're right, Jib. It's the ability to be able to use that kicking game. And if you don't get that, as you know, like you said with John Mitchell, he's probably thinking, let's just bring 14 men, 13 men up, make good decisions around the ruck, and let them play with the ball and be able to get turnovers off of that. Because look, the likes of Hermino, who I thought was outstanding on the weekend, it gives them guys like that to have opportunities at the breakdown to slow it down and then force the All Blacks to do something that they don't want to do.
Where does Hermino sit in the rankings in World Rugby for open side flankers? Because he's been impressive for a number of years now.
He reminds me of Quagga Smith. He's that sort of short, stocky 7. He's great around the ball. He's a strong, aggressive carrier, and he just goes all day. That's the like for like I see in him. But he's definitely pushing into the top 3 or 4 by far, and he's doing it against the best side. He'll have a big job ahead of him this week against England, but they'll just relish that challenge as underdogs. It's sometimes really nice being underdogs. Do you know what I mean? You've got nothing to lose. You can throw everything at it, and the pressure's on the opposition, and you saw that. But I must admit, the desperation and the clinical nature of that last few minutes by the All Blacks when the game was in the balance and leading to Dalton's turnover. Man, that's what you want to see for the full 80, isn't it? They were just men possessed. They were not losing that game at all costs. They were just going to peg them down there and hold them there until they got that turnover, and that's exactly what they did.
I suppose that's some lessons learned from this year.
Massive, and I still think it is going to hold us in good stead for the World Cup, because there's potentially you're going to have to call on these players in pressure situations, and having felt that against Japanese away from home and finding a way out the other side. I know everyone expects them to be beaten, but I actually think it's unfair. When you go through their side, even a guy like Riley in the centre, he was the match winner for Panasonic in the Japanese top league. He's some player, he's gone over there and he's built his career, and he is a clinical operator at 13. They should have some confidence going into 2023. And the focus that coaching group's putting in, they've got a fantastic leader, and they are just men that whatever you tell them to do, they will turn up and they'll deliver on it, and they'll be relentless about it.
You obviously believe this is a big nod to the top league.
I do. I think it excites me in the sense of where Super Rugby Pacific can go, and potentially, I'm not saying they join, but have some crossover or some sort of Champions League trophy that's played between everyone. Because I think those top 4 or 5 sides are now preparing, maybe even 6 with Bryn's side in there somewhere, are now preparing the Japanese eligible players, but also the Japanese local players for international level. Like that, although it might not have been the All Blacks top side, that was some serious talent in that All Blacks team in the 23 out there, and they stood up and nearly stole it.
Well, last time it happened, Bryn, I think you were in and around the All Blacks camp the last time, and it was a 50-60 point win, right?
That's exactly it. You look at the last 3 results, 54-6 in 2013, 69-31 in 2008, which isn't that long ago, and then to be in a position to almost really win that match, it just shows where the level of the Japanese rugby is in the moment. And look, I haven't been in the top league and been able to experience what that's been like for a long period of time, but just being over here and understanding the New Zealand influence, the South African influence, the Australian influence, the coaches in different parts of in Japan, these Japanese boys are getting upskilled at a very high level. So I'm not surprised at all with the result on the weekend, because I've seen how these boys trained. I see what their mindset is, and it's been able to just little things here and there when it comes to the mindset around big moments and decisions in those kind of games. That's probably the only area that I see the difference. This is just at my level, but I can only imagine you've got a great coaching group that will be able to just slowly keep tuning that away, keep being able to change that mindset. And once they get that right, man, they are going to be real, because the physicality thing we know was the biggest probably thing for them 4 or 5 years ago. But that now, if you look at them on the weekend, physicality wasn't a problem at all.
The investment they're putting into the international program as well. There's always been massive investment at club land, but the investment they are putting, like Bryn said, 6 or 7 week lead in to this. They are making every effort to make sure they are competitive in every test, and I think they are seeing the reward for that diligence, that prepared to put their money where their mouth is and be a genuine seat at the international rugby table, and they're doing it.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see what happens, like you say, against England on November 12th. Jamie Joseph.
It is that consistency, though, isn't it?
It is.
That is the key for them. Like, this is going to sound... It is easy to get up for a game playing the All Blacks. You know, it's sort of like, how do I put it? You know, similar to here in New Zealand, no sides going into playing the Crusaders underdone. You know, they're going in as underdogs. Crusaders are favourites. Same in the NRL. Storm, now probably the Panthers, are the favourites. They're getting everyone's best game. So it is that consistency and making sure that they have that edge of preparation and that clear understanding and the methodical approach to cleaning rucks, nailing their lineouts, making their tackles and executing when they get the opportunity like they did in scoring points. And that'll be the key going into this English test.
And not just consistently upsetting people every 4 years, consistently upsetting people every year to the point where it's no longer an upset.
Agreed.
Yeah. That Jamie Joseph comment was pretty funny. But I think absolutely true when he said that they'll take on a better team in England on November 12. When you look at that All Blacks lineup and you look at what they're likely to face in England, it's hard to argue that they're going to be up against a better team in England.
Potentially a different style, though. You know, like, it is hard to say. I just think there's such differing styles that. But yeah, if England, we haven't seen the English team named yet. Yeah. So let's probably just wait and see on that as well. I would say that no, unfortunately, not. Maybe after the All Blacks result, they may sharpen, you know, change their lineup a little bit. So yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But I won't be agreeing with that just yet. Yeah.
If the All Blacks had picked Bryn, their top team, then I would say it's an argument that's hard
probably
to have.
Even,
but when you're playing England at Twickenham, you know, it's not an easy place to go and do it.
No, well, it's not. And they haven't traditionally travelled well over to the Northern Hemisphere. A different climate, a different style of rugby, and you know, it's probably good playing the All Blacks because you know they want to throw the ball around, and you can have that kind of expansive gain and knowing that's what you're going to get. But you know, the English, like we've said, they have the ability to be able to do that. But the set piece, being able to be really strong at the set piece. But the great thing for the Japanese on the weekend, the line-out drive, which I thought they did really well defensively, and that's something they're going to really have to try and continue that throughout the Northern Hemisphere tour. But look, it's going to be all about consistency with them because they'll be obviously having a goal. They've been in a camp for a very long time. Even though they did get a good result against the All Blacks, you know, they'll be wanting to come away with the win or being as competitive as they were against these top-tier nations in the next couple of weeks.
I think, you know, if you look, as I mentioned, Hoskins Sotutu's try, the lead up to that is that direct nature is what they're going to face against England and potentially against bigger bodies. They are going to have to come up with a solution to get those bodies to ground quicker and stop that. Because if I was the English coach, I would see that and go, that's the blueprint forwards, please deliver that. You don't need to do anything special, just go direct, clean early and give us fast ball and we'll do the rest. With guys like Marcus Smith, Marchin and all that, they've got enough wheels, enough firepower to do just as much as the All Blacks, but I think, you know, they have a big pack, England, so that'll be Japan's biggest challenge.
The English play Argentina this week, so they'll have a nice little warm-up game too.
Yeah.
When you look at what happened on the weekend, we've got Brodie Retallick, who could face a sanction of that red card. I think it wasn't even the first incident in that game. No. You know, if you want to follow Brodie on a camera for a game, you're going to catch at least.
But I think there was a number of them from other players as well, which is that leading to that inconsistency a little bit, which you can see the frustration. But I thought at the time, Bryn, you know, and fortunately we got another look at one in the morning with Young, the reserve lot for Scotland, did one on Tate McDermott, which I felt was more direct contact to the head and it was a yellow. So then I know we can't expect consistency of red or yellow, but it does, do you know how it just confuses players a little bit? Yeah. But at the time I thought, it just shows you the day of, you know how so often you could give tips and then there'd be that separation of ball carrier and cleaner and you could still recover that space. Yep. With this new focus on clean outs around, you know, heads and neck, and you can't neck roll, there was no other option for Brodie. Like, he almost just had to not clean it. And because of the rules. So it just shows that, again, going back to, you need that direct nature. You're probably not going to be able to get this offload game going. And, you know, if there's a split between that clean and carrier, you're putting yourself as the attacking team under huge vulnerability to lose that ball. and or players making a decision to try and remove the body and end up with a red card.
Especially what the All Blacks are going to face in the Europe tour, Jip. They're so good around that breakdown area, and if we do want to play our tips. So you see on the weekend, we want to obviously go inside and outside and being able to go through that same. But you look at the Scottish on the weekend against the Australians, who I thought were trying to attack and play an expensive brand, but bang, straight on the ball, 3 penalties within the first 10 minutes, and if you don't get that right, and so and you talk around consistency, Jip, like the bicep to the head. Like it's still to the head.
Yeah.
Like
I don't get that.
What's the difference from going head to head, which we've seen red cards because it's gone to the head? So you're talking about consistency. I thought it was like that's a red card, but a bicep, the terminology, the inconsistency. I was pretty confused around knowing that wasn't a red card.
It's almost like, and I don't know if this is right, but it's like trying to get the refs to use the same language. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but you may see it different as an individual ref. But if you can use the same language as to why, then that takes the grey out of it. It's just like it shouldn't be. What if he went in for a normal clean and he mistakenly, catches his elbow, not his bicep?
Yeah. It's
quite like. Rugby's a tough sport in terms of split seconds. There's no intent there between bicep and elbow, but it makes a huge difference apparently. And I just don't know if that's fair. Like obviously, I say it all the time, like left the game with concussion. I'm not saying that head issues isn't an issue and we shouldn't find solutions. I just don't know if this is going to bring about the real change that we need.
What I found a little crazy about it, and you talked about Brodie not having a choice necessarily, well, having to make a choice between hitting or not hitting.
Yeah, and just let him have it.
If a person is that low to the ground, the chances of them actually maintaining their own body weight are minimal. So as a mitigating factor in a circumstance like this, is the fact that the bloke who's over the ball should probably be penalised because he's not holding his weight or her weight. And
that's the first offence, is potentially his elbows are on the grass and he's so low to the ground he's not holding his own body weight, and then a lot of trust comes in it to go, okay, well I'm not going to clean him because he's too low, but then is the ref going to make the decision on the picture I'm seeing? Like you just don't have time to think like that. You've got body, a man on the ball, your ball, you need to move him. Like it just becomes too difficult.
Yeah.
But I mean, like anything, we've faced these challenges before, and there will become a solution of removing bodies like that. There's enough coaches around the world that will know that this is going to become more of a focal point. It was the high tackle, but clearly players' behaviours have changed, so that's not as much of the focus point. Now it's in and around the breakdown and clearing that up.
It's hard to see it being cleaned up. It's easy to see.
Well, it's not going to be over this Northern Tour.
No.
Unfortunately, we're probably going to see a few people get it wrong as well. And it's just going to put the ref in a position where he's going to have to make a decision. But yeah, I think I feel like a yellow card potentially is the right threshold. It could have really lost Scotland the game. Like it was still a big punishment. Like obviously Slipper scores during that period. If anything, you could actually say it did lose them the game, even though they did butcher some opportunities themselves. But do you know what I mean? Like it was quite a big period for the Wallabies to come back. And then, the red card put defensively the All Blacks under huge pressure. Japan had more line breaks than the All Blacks, which you probably wouldn't have picked before the game. And then let it at the judicial hearing potentially play out there from the yellow card, and maybe they deemed it as a red or whatever. I don't know. I just think a red for Brodie's, that is really, really hard. I just don't know what else he could do.
But you always talk around with ball in hand, you've got to be able to get yourself in a position where you can move on the ground and get a good place and then be in there early, winning the race. But sometimes you're just not going to be able to do that. And it's positions like that where it's just like his head is pretty much on the ground, and you've got to make a decision right then and there. I've got to clean him out, or I just leave it there, give away a penalty, and they're 40 metres down with a kick. You know what I mean? So whether the mitigating factor, Jip, is if his head's below the body, or if there's a long place ruck and he's below that and it's close to the ground, that might be a mitigating factor. But then it takes away, like you said, Jip, people going head on and it's going into those ruck and flying at the heads. But it's pretty tough.
I don't even think it's that. I don't even think we need to create a new thing. I think it's the clear rule is you've got to lift the ball. If your head's on the ground, you can't lift the ball. So if they're lifting the ball, their head's up. So then that gives you a target area that you can clean them fairly. You can slip an arm through here and clean them out fairly. So he probably should have just been penalised for not holding his body weight or having a genuine attempt, because that's the old school way of jackling, that just that lean over and just stay there and absorb the clean.
Yeah.
Whereas the rule states now you've got to have a genuine attempt of ripping the ball up. That was never done. So potentially that could have been blown up before even Brodie got to that clean. And then if you are ripping the ball, you're providing that space for a fair contest. And that's all you're after.
And if you're doing it legally and you can't rip the ball, then it's a penalty against the person
Straight away
on the ground. So,
and we probably don't get to the clean out point.
Yeah.
There you go, World Rugby.
We solved it.
There you go.
Yeah. And this
Get
is
this
why
on.
people
World
sometimes watch
Rugby.
rugby league.
Yeah. You got time, we've got plenty of time for both,
When you
league
said
and union.
we don't have to introduce a new thing, I was like, praise the Lord. We do not need a new thing. This game is complicated enough as it stands. The Welsh, their injury woes are serious. When you go through this list, Halfpenny, North, Adams, Bigger, Anscombe, Faletau, it is going to be really hard for them to win this game without those names.
Yes, it will be. We potentially don't know, we potentially aren't going to have Brodie as Sam Whitelock back in the mix. We've lost Kane and Coles, really key members of our squad as well. So it is potentially offset. And one thing, you look at that, the way they fought and probably should have won in South Africa, I think they've got enough there.
Yeah.
I feel like they've got enough there, and also you've got to feed off the comments of Japan in the sense of that psychological, disbelief being there anymore. Like they would have to, we know Pivac will be really clear and he'll know he'll have to beat them with attack and bring that rush defence. I don't know, there has to be a sense of belief in that camp. There's no expectation for them to win. They have nothing to lose. It just is weighted, probably in their favour at the moment. We're having to travel there. There's just a few factors. If there's ever a time, you have to look at this season. If there's ever a time, they have to believe in themselves.
And I think that's a really good point, Jeff, because, we talked around, when they had the South African series, we were going 3-0 for South Africa before that series. And having that expectation...
Let's not bring that back up because caught a bit of abuse of that. Jeez, and now I just said the Welsh should have won that series. Oh, I'm going to get killed. I'm going to get slammed.
Yeah. But, there were no expectations around that. And sometimes, having that no expectation, and then at the same time, they must be buoyed by that Japanese performance. And, again, they'll get a little bit more of an All Blacks team. But, like you said, Jeff, I think they've had 4 losses this year. They're not playing consistently in the areas that we think that they should be doing every single week. But the breakdown, which, the Welsh have some very good features in, they're playing the Six Nations, and understanding that physicality is massive in that department of the world. So, look, I think, if it gets tight and they give themselves an opportunity, I think that's the one that they'd want it to have. Give themselves an opportunity to win that test match 10, 15 minutes to go and put all that pressure back on the All Blacks that's been given to them throughout the whole year. And then, they could steal one. But, it doesn't help that they do have injuries. But knowing Wayne Pivac, we sat here last year and we talked about it. No doubt he'll be talking around his mindset and getting that right to try and beat the All Blacks for the first time in a very long time.
And I hope they go back to, because it was the one test last Northern Tour that they were impressive. And guys like Artie, and now they're going to have a player like Samasoni Takiho who just went direct. They picked through the middle, they got him behind, they were relentless with their leg drive. They just were, there was no tips, there was no nothing. It was just simple footy, clean out, fast ball, and they dominated. And that is going to be the same, thing needed. And I think in our favour, I talked about the guys who are missing, but we're going to get to see a good chunk of Dalton Papali'i and his power game. He's a power athlete and what he can bring. Sam Whitelock coming back hopefully does shore up the line out issues. He is the magician of all magicians when it comes to line out, and you've seen how much Samasoni's grown under Sam Whitelock in terms of his ability to throw. So there is quite a lot of excitement in our camp as well. But I just don't think it is as straightforward as previous years where we've sat here and said, it's an All Blacks win.
Looking at those injuries outside of Faletau, they're all backs. So if they've got their best forward pack to choose from and their best forward pack can do what they did in South Africa, it's certainly a platform.
Well, Test match rugby is won on the finest margins, and those finest margins normally revolve around the pack delivering something, either a breakdown or set piece.
And I think if you've seen with the All Blacks this year, that's how you beat them. If you can not beat them up, but if you can slow down their ball, being able to put pressure on them through that way, that's where we've had our losses this year. And so, there are injuries in the backs, but if those forwards can come to the party, slow down the ball, frustrate the All Blacks, whether it be their clean out entry or not being able to get there early enough to win races, and just slowly build momentum, being able to put them under pressure. Because, like I said, Argentina have done it this year, who we thought wouldn't do it, or Australia or South Africa, whoever it may be. There have been challenging moments for the All Blacks this year, and so there's no better time than the Welsh to get that right as a forward pack.
The Scottish, we touched on them just before. They had another chance there, and they should have beaten Australia. They really should have.
They should. You look at the 25th minute, Tuipulotu line open, power runner. I think he had the winger to beat Wright. You'd back him, and Wright was coming from a distance. You'd back him to score. He drops it. From there, they quick tap. Game was lost by 1. They quick tap. They get held up. Eventually, from there, Australia go down and they get 3. The 55th minute, fantastic break, and then I think it was Gilchrist just running onto it and he just drops it cold. From that, the subsequent yellow card came from the breakdown before. Wallabies go down, they score, and then the 68th minute, and this is the biggest moment I feel. Foley misses touch, and it goes between Van der Merwe and Smith, and they both look at each other because they're like, "Are you catching it?" And then they let it bounce out. From there, the Wallabies get a penalty, and that's the penalty that takes them to 16-15, and that is all in their control. They weren't put under any pressure from the Wallabies. That is all in their control, and they will look at this, and they still had the opportunity to kick the goal, but I don't want it to rest on his shoulders alone. There was time and time again where they could have been better throughout that 80 minutes to not even make it that close.
It was unfortunate for Kinghorn, because when you see the chat that's happened around Finn Russell, and admittedly Finn Russell couldn't have played in this game because it was outside of the November window, and Racing 92 probably wouldn't have let him go for that game the same way that Hogg wasn't exited from Exeter for this game. You must feel for this guy a little bit, Bryn. Like, he's a young guy getting his first crack at 10. The talk is all about this enigma who's been left out of the side, and then he has that kick.
It's it's unlucky, for a young guy like that to put in that position to win a game against Australia. It's unfortunate, but look, he had some really great touches. Let alone his speed that he did for that try and being able to use those football skills to get over the line. But they're going to back. Probably we talked around with Noah Lolesio with the Australians. He's been able to give this guy opportunities to be able to play consecutive test matches, and he showed a lot of good traits that I thought that are going to be great for him being able to move on. I think that that aura of Russell was going to be always around there, but they've trusted him and wanted to give him the opportunity to do that. And I agree with Jip. With 15-6 with 20 minutes to go, and they had 5 or 6 opportunities, whether it be line out, knock on, all in their control. So it doesn't fall on Kinghorn and being able to say that you lose the test match on that kick. From the outside, and you're just watching as a spectator, you think Kinghorn should have got that. But look, they had 5 or 6 opportunities that they just squandered. And, they'll be looking back at this test match and thinking we should have done this way before that Kinghorn 79th penalty to win the game.
You could look at it in the other sense. They wouldn't even been that close had he not played. Like, he was probably the best player on the park. In terms of putting them in a position to win it. So, he missed some kicks. Like, that's going to happen. But without him out there, that individual brilliance, that desperation to get to that ball first, kick and run 70, so often not that doesn't come out the way it does. Also, the other guy I was really impressed with, and another guy that wasn't released in Hogg, but Smith at fullback. Man, his feet to score that try was exceptional, but also his kick coverage. Bruno, like a number of times, like it was either short or it went long, and he had the ability to adjust and pick it up. And he just seems elusive, like he just like sort of like Ben Smith, or even like Matt Duffy a little bit. You don't think they're big men, but they just seem to always come out the other side. I was really impressed with him.
Good ball runner, good athlete, and probably the only thing you'd say when he scores that try is he had 2 on the outside, and he's lucky he scored.
He is, That's a bit of youth.
Now, look, when you've got guys like that, we talk around the Rugby World Cup that's coming up, and you've got 2 guys, Hogg and Russell, that have been there for a very long time. They could be there come the World Cup, but look, having those 2 young men in that position, so young, it sits well for Scotland and future years to come.
From my point of view, watching that game, I've got more expectation on Scotland than I did before that match. You know, they were in charge of their own destiny. I thought the Wallabies would win that convincingly.
For Australia to be able to come back and get that job done, it shows. We talk around how much pressure they're on, and the kind of, what were they under? Like, I can't remember what they were saying the stats were, but they have won bugger all in the last 10 Test matches. So we talked around Scotland and winning that game and trying to build some momentum for that young squad that's going to get given opportunities to be able to come back. I thought, to be honest, I saw 15-6. And I was like, this is down the barrel for another loss here for the Australians. But to their credit, showed a bit of grit and got the job done.
But I don't think you can ever... Well, I haven't been able to question the Wallabies' grit for a few years now. Like, they just do hang in the fight. They are one side that just doesn't go away. Very rarely are they beaten well and truly, especially under Dave Rennie's reign. It just... You know what it's like. It just wouldn't be accepted. So, yes, they'd like to win more. But you knew it was going to be close. You knew there was going to be some sort of a comeback. But Scotland did gift it to them. They presented on the platter, and the Wallabies were good enough to take it to their credit.
Now, Scotland are currently sitting 6th in the official World Rugby rankings. Australia are well below that. Let's have a look at what we're seeing heading into this first big weekend of the Autumn Internationals, as they call them. The official world rankings say Ireland, France, South Africa, New Zealand, England, Scotland, Wales, Argentina. Now let's look at that top 4 to start with. Is that right, that top 4?
I mean, there'd be an argument to say your All Blacks and South Africa could switch in the sense that it was 1-1 away from home and obviously in the Springboks home. But I'd say the fact that they won their June series rightfully puts them ahead of the All Blacks at the moment.
For you, Bryn?
I'm the same. You'd want to say England, possibly they'll come up, but just with their Six Nations performance and I guess where they are, I'd probably just have them where they are. But you could flip it with New Zealand. The fact that they didn't win the Rugby Championship, they got the job done, and it was 1-1 against the South Africans. You'd think that would be the only change that I'd have. But look, Ireland and France, they are arguably the best 2 teams in the world at the moment.
If I was looking at that going into the 2023 World Cup, though, I'd put France at 1 because they're at home. I just think that's such a massive... Do you know what I mean? That would be a big thing that would differentiate those 2. But other than that, it's probably correct with what Ireland did in New Zealand. Pretty impressive.
So as an extension of that, when you look through England, Scotland, Wales, Argentina, 5 through 8, which ones of those teams do you think could force their way in through these autumn internationals into that top 4?
Well, I agree with Bryn. I think England, if they can win all of them and obviously beat the All Blacks, then they rightfully push their way in. I think you have to think the Wallabies push their way into the top 8 as well. It just doesn't seem right that they're not there. I know the results haven't been there, but I think they need a big tour. They need to stump up with W's, and they'll definitely, iron will be sharpening iron this week after the performance on the weekend. So you've got to think they can squeeze in to the 8. And I'm a little bit surprised that Wales is below Scotland. I think they've got the ability to potentially jump over the top of them as well.
Iron will be sharpening iron.
Yeah. Well, there'll be a lot of breakdowns being clean, and iron will be sharpening iron.
Fair enough. We haven't had a Jipper commentary for a couple of months.
Yeah, I had to get one in there.
We've been missing out on these gems.
Little one-liners.
I'll be hearing the Japan Top League very shortly, Jip. I'll be able to hear
you better look after me over Christmas.
Right. Okay, let's have a quick look ahead to the week ahead then. Let's make some picks. Obviously, we've got the Women's World Cup. Let's start with that. Both games at Eden Park on Sunday New Zealand time. New Zealand versus France.
Black Ferns.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the Black Ferns. Come on. Yeah. Come on, girls.
Obviously, England's.
Yeah, no-brainer. No offence to Canada, but...
Yeah, straightforward. So that's our final. The men's games. A couple of interesting ones in here. Scotland v Fiji.
Scotland's consistency just concerns me, but because I got on their bandwagon so heavy last Northern Tour, and then they obviously hit the wall. So you'd have to think at home they'll win over Fiji.
Yeah, I think they'll be ruining from obviously what happened on the weekend, so they'll get the job done. And but again, the consistency it's tough. Could see Fiji easily going in there and winning as well. But, you back Scotland, you'd have to think Scotland.
They'll have to get their kicking game right, though. If they give too many counter-attacking opportunities or unstructured play, they'll get beaten because that's Fiji's, it's in their DNA. So it'll be a big week for the two men we highlighted, Smith and Kinghorn.
Italy v Samoa, Bryn.
Samoa, I just think with the coaches that they do have there, I think they'll get a good result. And they've got a couple of guys coming back as well, playing for that Samoan team. So I'll pick the Samoans over Italy.
Yeah, same. They've been up there for a bit too, so they've been sharpening iron with iron too. So they'll be ready to go for Italy.
Okay, Wales v New Zealand.
All Blacks.
All Blacks.
Well, that was straightforward. I thought there might be some more umming and ahhing after the conversation a little earlier. But, okay, All Blacks, Ireland versus South Africa.
Oh, what a game.
Yeah.
Hell of a game.
What a game. I'll go Ireland. I'm going Ireland.
Okay, you take it while he figures himself out. Yeah.
I'm just trying to work out how much abuse I want to cop this week. Ireland. Lots of abuse, as it turns out. How much you want to cop I'm
this
up
week.
for plenty of abuse.
They are the number 1 team ranked in the world. So
And they are at
no
home.
worries.
And they're at home.
And they're at home.
Yeah.
So Ireland.
On a rating scale of South Africans' hatred for you, when I think about the other people they've hated over the years, whether it be Fitzy or Goldie or these other people that they've always had a crack at, I'm feeling like you're making your way out.
I seem to be. I really like South Africans, but my comments seem to ruffle a few feathers. Unintentionally.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've got a few less French listeners to the podcast.
Yeah.
So France versus Australia, Bryn.
Yeah, we had the French. Tough one for the Aussies. Tough one. So I'll go the French.
Yeah, I just can't see the Wallabies. Oh, I wish they could, but they won't.
If it did go Australia's way, it would set this whole autumn series alight.
Oh, it would.
Everyone would be like, what on earth is going on?
They are capable of doing it.
Yeah.
They are.
You're right.
They are capable of doing it, and also the French are capable of not hitting the ground running.
I think with where the French are and how we talked to them last year that having bogey games or not being able to be the French that they used to be, they just haven't shown any of that in the last.
You're right. Yeah, you bang on there, Bryn.
Yeah. Last game of the weekend: England v Argentina.
England.
Yeah, England.
Straightforward.
AB's 15, Ireland A.
Wow, there's been a few injuries that have and obviously gone back up. But who have they got coming back down? They've got two of us are Sheck down and
Braden
who else has come
Ennor.
down? You'd have to think New Zealand A. I'm going to back the New Zealand A. Even though Ireland A have had some great lead-up preparation with that group when they came and played the Maldives, came over here, and then they've also had the Tuna Herd. They've had a couple more games as well, I think, in South Africa. So All Black 15, but Ireland A will be strong.
All Black 15, Sean Stevenson, Player of the Day.
There you go. Well, it's a team which has had a lot said about it. And so there is quite a lot on this game because of it. Yeah.
Dublin.
Yeah.
Oof. It is going to be a tough test. I mean, and this is what this team is designed to do, is to prepare them for the pressures of Test match rugby, so when they get there, they're ready to go. And this is, you'd be licking your lips if you're a player getting this opportunity to play in front of a full house in Dublin. Yeah. Like, it's a place I never got to play and I wished I had, just to go to the Guinness factory.
It's a nice spot by the river there, mate.
Yeah, well.
Great. Well, boys, thank you very much once again. Goodness me, there's some rugby this weekend. How many games was that? 2 in the women's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big ones in the men's, plus the lower tier men's as well happening this weekend. 8 games of rugby to feast on.
Oh, how good.
How good.
And even a bit of T20 World Cup action.
Oh, yeah, don't forget to
feast your eyes on that.
Exactly, on Sky Sport. Do not miss it. Do not miss it. It's going to be very, very good. So, if you love your footy, make sure you tune in to us again next week, whether it's on Sky, on RugbyPass's platforms, or as an audio pod, and make sure that you watch Sky Sport for the cricket as well, because that's going to be an absolute ripper.
And Glenn Phillips. If you're a Glenn Phillips fan, get him behind it.
Yeah. Glenn Phillips versus the world.
The entertainer.
Absolutely.
He's mimicking his Russell Crowe. His inner Russell Crowe. You know, are you not entertained? He puts the old arms out.
Bloody good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Bryn. Jibber, thank you as well, and thank you all for tuning in. This is the second attempt at saying goodbye. Bye. Mā te wā.